I'm going to beat you into the living death.
Welcome back to Yelling About Mixed Martial Arts, the show where I yell about mixed martial arts. UFC 294 just wrapped up last weekend, taking place in the desert, also known as the Manhattan of the Middle East or Abu Dhabi, depending on what doctor you ask. Before the event started, I thought that it was going to be the inexperienced judges and referees who were going to be the problem, but oh no, Dr. Dickhead steps into the cage and completely steals the show. Most notably, of course, in the exchange that happened between him and Johnny Walker, leading to that fight being a no contest. That went a little something like this. All right, Mr. Walker, who's the current president?
Joe Biden.
Of Tanzania?
Oh, Samia Suluhu Hassan.
All right, good. Recite pi to the first 7 digits.
3.14159.
What is this a picture of?
A horse.
So far, so good. One last question, though. What city are we currently in?
What's the city? We're in this desert.
Ooh. So close, but no, that was not the answer I was looking for. No more fight for you. Pizza? Anybody want to get pizza? I guess that's what happens when you hire your doctors from the Saudi Arabian version of Scrubs. Which is a real thing, actually. It's called 37 Degrees and ran from 2008 to 2010. So right, Johnny Walker is hit with an illegal knee during his fight with Magomed Ankalaev, and the doctor is called in. During the stoppage, the doctor asks him what city he's in, and Johnny Walker replies, the desert. Now, I don't know if that doctor is a native English speaker, but Johnny Walker is fucking not! Unlike the delicious blended Scotch whiskey that shares his name, Johnny Walker is from fucking Brazil. So you have two people who might not speak English speaking English to each other. I don't see any potential for a problem here. But even if Johnny Walker spoke the King's English with the poise and grace of a diplomat, I would think that in the throes of a fight, having just been kneed in the head, the answer, the desert, would have sufficed. Johnny Walker would have been well within his rights to say, I'm in fight country, motherfucker. Get the hell out of my octagon, you wet nurse. But he didn't. And thus the fight was ruled a no contest, leading to all hell breaking loose inside of the cage. The incident with the doctor was so goddamn ridiculous that Johnny Walker didn't even realize that the fight had been stopped. He goes back into the center of the octagon wanting to reset, but by then security was already inside of the cage. He starts pushing the referee, Ankalaev's team is pushing, things are starting to get a little heated, and had there been any bad blood between them, we might easily have been looking at Khabib versus Connor's ending part 2. Thankfully that was not the case, but it still required Daddy Dana to step in, making it one tense night at the Saudi Arabian office for him. Which is also a real thing. God, how many of those remakes did they do over there? Now, this debacle in the desert was actually the second what the fuck incident for this doctor at UFC 294. The first incident was when he told Victor Henry that he had not been kicked in the dick and the balls, when he had in fact just been kicked in both the dick and the balls. During his fight with Victor Henry, Javid Basharat threw an inside leg kick that was high to say the least. To quote DC, it looked like his foot went right up into the crack of his ass. That's a direct quote. Rewatch the broadcast. Well, even if it didn't look like a direct hit, Henry sure made it seem like one, dropping to his knees and face-planting like Willem Dafoe's iconic death scene in Platoon. The doctor comes in, says, you didn't get hit in the nuts, Henry. You're being a pussy. Stop it with the cup cap. An astonished Henry looks back like, well, my bait and tackle say otherwise, asshole. I don't know if there's anything I can say verbally to you that my body language isn't already expressing. The doctor calls the fight. Henry goes to the back to vomit and then goes off to the hospital for a testicular ultrasound. Yikes. I was doing a watch along on my live stream for this event, twitch.tv/ThinkerSt. and someone in the chat said that they did think that Henry was faking his injury. But if he was faking, that was the greatest sell I have ever seen in the history of MMA. If that man was acting, he has dethroned Aljamain Sterling as the finest thespian in all of mixed martial arts. Right up there with Don Frye and his amazing performance in Godzilla Final Wars. And that was fantastic.
You'd hit a woman.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't think that doctor is going to be around mixed martial arts for very much longer, because if I was a fighter and had my choice between that presumably trained doctor and the doctor who played keyboards in the backing band on Prince's Purple Rain, consider me singing When Doves Cry Till the Fucking Cows Come Home when it comes to who would be administering my medical care in a sport where I could literally die. Let's move away from physician-related fuckery for a minute and talk about the feel-good story of the event, in my opinion, and that was the win secured by Mike Breeden, utilizing psychological warfare to have one of the greatest come-from-behind victories that I've seen in quite some time. Breeden was fighting Anshul Jubilee, only the second Indian fighter in UFC history, coming from a market where MMA has not yet really taken hold. Well, Jubilee was doing a pretty bang-up job in the first 2 rounds, essentially sailing his way to a victory with a solid technical performance. But Mike Breeden said when the going gets tough, the tough get crazy, turning the tables in what can only be described as Dr. Jekyll going full Mr. Hyde. Coincidentally, Dr. Jekyll, also a doctor I would prefer to that doctor we were talking about earlier, but I digress. Breeden entered the 3rd round and turned the psychopath up to 11. He started yelling at his opponent. He started taunting his opponent. He started barking at his opponent like a motherfucking dog, quite literally, roof, roof, DMX Rough Riders 1998 style. Anshul Jubilee didn't know what the fuck he was looking at, and the fear rose up in him like Wait and Bleed by Slipknot. In 1 round, he had been dominated mentally, and then dominated physically with the Money Mike knockout. Truly a sight to behold. If Breeden had made weight, it might very well be on my Mount Rushmore of MMA comebacks. The last thing that I want to go over when it comes to UFC 294 is the fact that mythical fighters are just that, myths. Every hype train is completely derailable, and never was that more apparent than this past event. For months online, I had been hearing about this milky-eyed madman known as Shara Magomedov. This superhuman creature that would be tearing down the UFC and rebuilding it in his image. And like the sucker I am, I threw my money down and said, wow, this guy is a must-watch. He's the first fight on the early prelims. I am there. I then proceeded to watch his fight with my eye twitching, as every parlay that I had was thrown into jeopardy by a debut so mid, it was on par with the comedy chops of Pete Davidson, thus proving that this meme is true in more ways than one. Luckily for me, he eked out a victory, but some godlike crusher-destroyer, he is not. The other hype train that keeps rolling is of course Khamzat Chimaev, who I actually thought we might see get his first UFC loss via an attrition war with Kamaru Usman, even despite their size difference. That of course didn't end up happening, but what his performance did show is that there are some tremendously glaring holes in his game. He goes into every fight full guns a-blazing, wanting to finish it in the first 30 seconds, then gasses out completely when he can't get the job done. It showed in the Gilbert Burns fight, it showed in this fight, and if he's got a 5-rounder against Sean Strickland coming up, it's going to be a very long night for him if Sean can withstand the grappling. I don't want to speak too soon, but much like Ronda Rousey, I can see Khamzat going from bores to boring real quick when fighters start adapting to his style and can survive his initial onslaught. So in the end, an unranked middleweight beats another unranked middleweight and somehow gets a title shot. Cinderella story to be sure. That's it for anything even remotely interesting to come out of UFC 294 and this episode of YAMMA. If you like this content, please subscribe to the channel. YAMMA also has its own social media accounts now. I haven't started posting on them, but I will soon. And as always, this is Thinker St. James reminding you that if you care this much about MMA, you too are a fucking moron. All right, look, I'm going to level with you here. Of course, I wanted to talk about Vulcan the head kick. Of course, I wanted to talk about the partner Dosido with people having to pull out and come in on short notice. There's a whole bunch of crazy shit with this event that I wanted to talk about, but it's 12:30 in the morning. This guy over here is about to fucking kill me if I keep recording, and I've got a flight to catch in 12 hours, so if I don't stop now and start editing, this thing isn't coming out before my trip. If you like what I'm doing on this channel and want to hear more of my opinions, subscribe so I can get my own dedicated studio space where I can record whenever the fuck I want. But if I don't stop right now, this dude's going to punch a fucking hole in the wall, so I gotta leave it right here. Thanks for everything, you know.
It's